With only 2 races to go in 2023, the focus has been drastically shifted to the upcoming season, but it seems like Red Bull's rivals are going to struggle heavily when it comes to competing up front with the Austrian team, and that has been confirmed by the F1's president as well. With Mercedes suffering from such downbeat in Brazil, Ferrari not being able to fix their reliability issues, and McLaren still far away from catching up to Red Bull and their turn of fortunes, is the sport doomed to wait out until 2026 for a new champion? Red Bull has started and will very likely end the 2023 season in the most dominant manner possible, as Verstappen claimed 17 out of the 20 possible wins in the calendar so far. To add the cherry to the pie, 2 of the remaining 3 went to his teammate Perez, and this has been crowned by Verstappen's win in Brazil, one with which he's set to have the best win percentage in a season in 70 years at 77%, breaking the record that stood from the legendary Ascari. When the situation stands like this, there are few things that Red Bull's rivals and the sport can do. Yes, the Austrian team was of course found of breaching the budget cap back in 2021, but that doesn't effectively slow them down, which is not to be blamed on the penalty itself, but on the teams not understanding what needs to be done with their respective cars. Once McLaren found out that they need to follow the design of the RB19, they managed to cut down more than a second of performance, but the reality is that Red Bull did not even develop their car in the second half of the season due to the budget cap breach restrictions, and have focused majorly on the 2024 season. Adrian Newey has issued a damning statement on his rivals, and it seems like the Austrian team does not plan to stop anytime soon when it comes to winning championships. And when talking about this with the former F1 boss Eddie Jordan, the genius mastermind behind Red Bull's designs went on to truly put the RB20 high on the pedestal even before seeing what it's capable of. Elaborating on their chat regarding the 2024 season, Eddie Jordan went on to say, "I don't care what engine Mercedes have, the car is not at a level, and the quality aerodynamically in terms of the ability to drive it hard and to get the maximum out of it like Max Verstappen is able to do." I was at a function the other night with Adrian Newey. We're cyclists. We cycle a lot together in Cape Town, and Adrian tells me that he feels that the evolution of what they've got at the moment is going to be so difficult for anyone to catch up with. So please, folks out there, prepare yourself either for a boring time or an exciting time, dependent whether you're a Red Bull fan. It's going to be similar, and Max is going to be so good. Even without Jordan's statement on Newey, it wouldn't have been too difficult for us to understand that this is very likely going to be the reality that we're going to see. For example, the domination that Verstappen has set in 2023 gives 0 to no options with the current budget cap limit and technical limitations for 2024 for the other teams to actually try and do something better in the middle of this entire era that we're in. Massive hopes were laid in Mercedes after the upgrades in Austin seemed to work wonders, as Hamilton labelled them the first ones that actually feel like the car has upgraded its performance. That was the same outcome in Mexico as well, but in Brazil, the car was the 7th fastest on the grid, and the Silver Arrows expressed massive demotivation for the upcoming season, with Lewis Hamilton saying, "The Red Bull, I think, is so far away. I think they are probably going to be very clear for the next couple of years." This statement comes weeks after Hamilton said that he was very confident in his team when it comes to challenging Red Bull in 2024. And to top that off, the technical director of Mercedes, James Allison, has sent an email back to the engineers in Brackley about how he feels regarding the defeat that the team suffered in the track that they had so much hope for. Elaborating on this even further, Allison went on to say, "I just wrote an email back to the factory saying I feel knocked for 6 by it because we came here. It would have been too much to imagine a repeat of last year because the stars would have to align for that, but I thought we'd be troubling the podium." Now, you could say you've been undone by your own hubris, but never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that we would have the torrid weekend we just had. Many have resorted to the only possible way of stopping Red Bull, which is nerfing their DRS advantage, at least during the qualifying session, as we all saw that the Austrian team has around 20 to 30 kilometers an hour advantage once the rear flap opens up. This is almost guaranteeing a pass for the Red Bull drivers, and not having this advantage during qualifying could very well mean that we're going to see a lot more compacted grid, something that is currently happening in the second half of the 2023 season. But according to Stefano Domenicali, the rules would remain the same and there would be no reason whatsoever to punish Red Bull for doing such a great job on this field. When talking about it, the F1 president was adamant regarding the future of the sport, as he added, "I think if you look back at the dominance of a driver or a team, it's always been a part of F1. We need to consider one thing that for sure Max Verstappen has done and is doing an incredible job. We need to recognise that. But if you see today at the gaps in qualifying, it's just incredible. If you look at the numbers of overtaking we're having the last 2 seasons, we're at the top of the scale. We cannot be seen as a sport that is trying to do something against someone. That would be wrong." I'm not trying to take anyone's side here, but in 2020, when Mercedes introduced one of the most clever solutions when it comes to the camber levels of the front tyres, called the DAS or Dual Axis Steering System, it was dubbed as illegal and it was instantly banned for 2021. Mercedes gained a lot of advantage thanks to this system because they managed to change the camber levels of the front tyres by pushing and pulling their steering wheels, which helped a lot with the tyre warm-up. What the FIA did in this situation is they added a rule which said the realignment of the steered wheels must be uniquely defined by driver input to a single steering wheel permitted to have only 1 degree of freedom, which must be rotational, and the relationship between the angle of each steered wheel to the angle of the steering wheel must be a strictly monotonous function. Now, as all things stand, everything is looking poised against Mercedes winning races on a regular matter in 2024, but that doesn't effectively mean that we're going to have a boring season. Quite the contrary, actually. McLaren have made some great strides, and more likely than not, they will be up there, competing for wins much more regularly than in 2023. But according to Ross Brawn, the solution for a competitive season in Formula One yet again lies in Red Bull and Red Bull only, as the team needs to bring a competitive driver alongside Verstappen to spice things up a bit at the front. Elaborating on this even further, the former F1 boss went on to say, "What I'd love to see, quite frankly, is someone more competitive in the other car, because unfortunately Sergio is not putting up much competition for Max, and even when you get a dominant car, if you can have someone in the other car who's giving them a hard time, and we think of Rosberg and Hamilton, that was a great year in a year when Mercedes were dominating. Over this winter, I'm optimistic there will be a reset. When you're at the front, you have the advantage of being able to start the design of your new car earlier because you're competitive enough, and that's where that domination can sometimes run for several years. With this in mind, the hopes that the 2024 season is going to be quite challenging for every team not named Red Bull and for every driver not named Max Verstappen. With so little time to fix all of the issues that have poised their respective challenges from the 2022 technical regulation era, and with Red Bull working on the 2024's car much earlier than anybody else on the grid, it would take a miracle for a driver outside of Verstappen to win races and to spice up the championship, unless Red Bull decides to spice things up on its own by bringing another competitive driver alongside Verstappen.